how it's used. And then finally, hopefully we'll have some time for me to get some feedback from all of you, or how you can provide some feedback to me if you're not watching today's session live. So today we're going to be, as I've mentioned before, but I'm just gonna uh, say it one more time, understand what family engagement is versus involvement, and then understand the annual parent survey's importance and why we make you have it filled out every year, as well as what we're using that data for. So what is family engagement? Family engagement is all about partnerships. And so if you are a parent with a student or child with an IEP, there's partnerships that you need to develop in a multitude of ways with your school, with your child's medical team, if that disability impacts their medically or their health, and then community supports and resources. Um, School is one piece of that community, not the whole community, and so having those partnerships across all these platforms is important. So what does that look like? So family engagement is any way that a person's adult caretaker is um, effectively supported in building that person's learning and healthy development. It's a full, equal, and equitable partnership among families, educators, and medical professionals, along with community partners, to promote a person's development or quality of life. And so it focuses on having two-way communication. It focuses on having things be collaborative, so not having parents just sitting and getting information, but also being able to bring information to the table and being able to collaborate in providing ideas behind how to improve one's health or skills, as well as being people who have knowledge of the student and or strategies or ideas that can help the student grow and develop. So when we have these collaborative relationships, parents and caregivers are going to be able to develop stronger parent-child relationships. They're going to have better rapport with teachers, school staff, and medical team by you being able to demonstrate to providers what your knowledge is, and by providers and teachers and community members sharing their knowledge, you'll be able to be better at advocating for your child, which will hopefully deepen and have more supportive social connections. There's a lot of movement in the state right now to really foster having deep social connections and really break down that isolation, and engaging families in a more meaningful way is how we can kind of break down the isolation that a lot of families with children who have needs that extend beyond typical developing peers tend to face. The individual, the patient, the student is going to have a more positive attitude and behavior. They're going to have a better self-esteem and an ability to advocate for themselves, and they're hopefully going to engage better in school or in their care. And then if your school, hopefully we are going to focus on less of what people cannot do and more of what they can do, and how we can improve upon what they're able to do so they're able to do more things. Have a better understanding of the fact that we have a diverse population of individuals living in our state, and therefore we have different cultures and different ways of addressing different social situations, and engage in better motivation for people across backgrounds, and be better at getting input from families. So if families know what their individual should know and be able to do at the end of the year or at the end of a goal period or a treatment plan, then they'll know whether or not their individual is progressing, and they'll know what they can do at home to support what their individual is doing at school or while receiving or recovering from treatment. And that means that we'll be able to take action. So if a student has an annual goal around reading, and we know what skills we're working on to be able to improve our child's overall reading, then we'll be able to do activities at home where we're able to build upon the skills that we're working on with reading. And then together as a whole group, instead of just in isolation at school, we'll be able to work on those reading skills, and hopefully the student will be able to do better at reading. If it's systemic, meaning it's across the entire school community and not just one singular classroom or one specific student-teacher relationship or one parent-teacher relationship, then we're going to have more aligned and coherent and overall improvement. We're going to have community members who are able to be decision makers. We're going to be able to have structure shift, and we're going to be able to share the power and resources so that everyone is able to get on board and make progress instead of just isolated pockets of progress. And so one way that we can foster family engagement and really look at systemic issues are through special education parent advisory councils. So in Article 7, which is the special education law that governs how special education is run here in Indiana, takes the federal law of IDEA and narrows it even further, makes it even more tighter than what the federal government asked us to do when it comes to special education. There is a provision about parent and community participation, and that provision is driving a the driving force behind having parent-driven groups that provide input to local school corporations, local education agencies, school districts, school systems on a system level to approach challenges to special education and related services. And so why should your school corporation have one if you don't already have one, which there are several already around the state? It's because it allows parents to provide direct input to school leaders about policies, programs, practices, and services. It allows proactive engagement. So rather than coming to the table when you feel like the IEP isn't set up the way you want it to, you can have a say in the policies and the programs and services and practices that are going into what's being offered at the IEP meeting so that hopefully the IEP is more indicative of what you want to see your child's program look like from the beginning instead of feeling like you have to reactively fight for whatever services or practices you would like to see in place. It allows education outcomes for all learners to improve, not just those with IEPs, and it allows us to determine what unmet needs there are and then be able to address those needs. So there's a couple different ways that you can get started. If you are a parent, family, or student listening in today, take a moment to send an email or make a phone call to your superintendent or principal and see what their interest is. This is parent driven but administrative backed, meaning that your superintendent, your special education director, your principals at buildings need to be involved. It's going to not just be your elementary school, your middle school, your high school, it would be across the entire school corporation. So having a core group of leaders across the entire school system is important. There is a QR code here to a national CPAC guide, and that guide is really helpful in determining how to go about setting up a CPAC. There's also a collaborative in the state that meets. And so if you're interested and you want to learn more, this interest form allows you to do that. If you are an educator, then and you're wanting to set one up for your school corporation, again, talk to your local special education director, talk to your superintendent, talk to your local principal, um, figure out who your public agency reps are, representatives, and see what other families would be willing to engage in this with you. And then if you're a community member, speak to those same people, speak to families that you serve, and then participate in helping to address those unmet needs that might come up in future discussions as things get started. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the State Advisory Council on the Education of Children with Disabilities, which is better known as SAC. In Indiana State Code, and as part of IDEA, there needs to be a State Advisory Council, and the Secretary of Education is tasked with appointing this council. And what their duties consist of is providing policy guidance around special education and related services for children with disabilities. And these people um, are providing policy at the state level. So CPACs are the local level, and then this group of SAC members advises at the state level and looks at state systemic needs. So currently, that group of 17 members is established. We are always looking for parents who might be willing to serve in the future. So one way to get involved so that you could be a parent that's participating in the future is to attend our meetings. Meetings are open to the public. We have one coming up in March, and then we'll have 3 more throughout the rest of the year in June, September, and November. Those are typically the second Friday of the month. And then if you are interested in attending and would like to have the link, you just would send an email to this email address, sac@doe.in.gov. And the fine staff that work on the SAC behind the scenes would be happy to send you the link so you can participate. People who are participating in the public, there is a public input section, but ultimately most of the meeting you would just be listening in, just so that you're aware of how that process works. So now I'm going to talk about the parent survey. So the parent survey is something that is completed annually. Oftentimes from year to year, it looks very similar, but we ask you to complete it every year because we want to make sure that parents are engaged and involved in the process of developing your child's individualized education program. It can be completed online or a paper version. The survey is available in 3 languages currently, and we ask one of the questions, and I'll bring this up again later. One of the questions that's asked is what language is spoken at home, and the reason for that is so that we can recognize whether or not more languages need to be offered when it comes to what languages we offer the survey in. If you have not taken the survey yet for this school year, and you've already had an IEP meeting, a case conference committee meeting, or an annual case review, you are welcome to scan the QR code and take the survey. If you haven't had a meeting yet this year, then I ask you to wait until you've had a meeting to take the survey, since there's a lot of information that's asked that is directly related to being engaged in a meeting, and you might not be able to adequately answer the questions at this time. I want to take a look at some of the data from the last couple years. So during the 2022-2023 school year, we being the Indiana Department of Education, 4,361 responses. And out of those responses, 4,358 could be scored. And what that means is that if you completed if you started the survey, but then you didn't answer all the questions, then we wouldn't be able to score it. And the questions are not the demographic questions that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, like the actual like survey questions. If you choose not to answer all of them, then we can't use your survey. If you answer some, but not all, then we can. So some people just would fill out the demographic information and then they don't answer any of the questions, and then we're not able to use their survey. So overall for the entire state, we had a response rate of 2.32%. This is up from previous school years, which is great. Most of the individuals who completed the survey identified as white. Most of the individuals who responded to the survey were preschool aged or before kindergarten. And then most of the people who responded to the survey identified that their child's primary disability was specific learning disability, autism, or other health impairment. And so when we look at the data across grade levels, this is not reflective of how the grades go across the state. The primary disability category and the race ethnicity are, though, reflective of how things go in the state. And so if we compare that to last year's data, we had over 10,000 responses and over 10,000 that could be scored. And we had an overall response rate of 5.40%. So what changed between 2022 and 2023 to the 2023-2024 school year? Well, we changed the survey. And we also changed it so that it was available in a couple more languages than it had been in the past. But if you notice, our responses as far as which race, ethnicity, what grade level, and what primary disabilities stayed the same. And so if you are a parent in elementary school or middle school or in high school, and you have not received the survey and you've had a meeting this year, please, please, please fill it out. We want to get your feedback, and that's the best way to get it, is if you fill out that survey, because as you can see, we still have an overwhelming number of pre-kindergarten, preschool students completing it. And when I say pre-kindergarten, preschool, I mean kids who are between the ages of 3 and 5 who have not yet entered kindergarten. I am not talking about birth through 3. Those individuals are surveyed in a completely different survey that's run through First Steps. So what was asked on what's being asked on the current survey that's happening right now? There's several topics, and it's going to cover 2 slides, and I'm going to read them all to you because I want to make sure that you're aware. What was your participation as a parent in the case conference committee meeting? When you're not in a case conference committee meeting, how available are teachers and administrators when it comes to communicating, and not just them communicating things to you, how well are they able to get a hold of if when you're trying to reach them? How well do you understand what's included in your child's IEP? How well do you know the process for evaluating for special education services, whether that's an initial evaluation or a reevaluation? How well do you know what data was collected, why that data was collected, and how it's used to determine whether or not your child is eligible for a specific eligibility area or not? How well do you know what organizations are available to support you? You're listening to an in-source webinar right now, but are you aware of what other resources might be available in the state given what your child's specific eligibility area are? In-source is a wonderful resource, and it's a great resource for understanding IEP, but if there's medical components to your child's disability, there might be some other organizations that you want to access. There's Medicaid and Medicare. And the services related to that. So what other organizations are available to support? How well do you know your rights and what steps you can take if you disagree with something that's being proposed in the IEP, or if an eligibility area isn't being considered that you think should be considered, or a child was found ineligible and you don't think they should be? Um, are you aware of the notice of procedural safeguards, and how dispute resolution works? Do you know how often you should be receiving progress on the working towards the achievement of annual goals? Are the meetings accessible? Are they happening at a time and in a location that works for you? If you are not someone who speaks English predominantly, is there an interpreter available to you? If you are someone who uses American Sign Language, is the interpreter an is that interpretation American Sign Language? Um, how accessible is school? As far as allowing you to come into the building, as allowing your child to fully be inclusive and participate to the fullest extent of their abilities. Are students being given the same opportunities as their peers without disabilities? Are they able to audition for the fall play? Are they able to play sports beyond unified sports? Are they able to participate in the after school activities that are offered to their same age peers that are without disabilities? Demographic information that we ask your school corporation and the name of the school, which are two different things. You'd be surprised how many people tell me that they attend the school corporation, but then put the same information as that for the school name, um, or they just give me the school name. What I'm going to show you in a little bit is what local education agencies, what those school corporations receive. And so if I don't have a school corporation in this survey, or the team doesn't receive a school corporation, then we can't give that data back to schools without personal identifying information being attached to it, but just that general knowledge of how things are going. We ask grade, race, ethnicity, primary disability, and home language as well. And so we use this to determine what biases are in the survey's results and whether or not anything is skewed towards specific demographics. So as I mentioned, we have a large number of preschool, pre-kindergarten students currently responding to the survey, which skews the data towards that population. The needs of preschool age students is different than the needs of a first grader, which is different than a middle schooler, which is different than a high school student, or someone accessing 18 to 22-year-old programming. So we want to make sure that we have a nice curve where we're getting the right number of students participating that reflects the number of students that are receiving services at those age populations. We want to make sure that specific race and ethnicities are being recognized because cultural needs are different across different races and ethnicities. We want to make sure that different languages are being represented across the board as well. So once we figure out where the data is being skewed, then we try really hard to target those specific populations so that the data is not skewed in the future. Um, and that's one of the reasons why you saw that huge jump in the 2022, 2023 data to the 23, 24 data. We were able to target and get more responses overall. But unfortunately, we still are getting skewed data even with the increase of responses. So we're looking to hopefully get even more. There's almost 200,000 students in Indiana who are receiving services through an IEP. And so that 10,000 number is great, but it should be even higher than that. When we collect this information, we are not asking any personal identifying information from you. We don't want your student's name. We don't want your name. If you are leaving comments and you put your name or you put your student's name, anything like that does not get shared with local education agencies or posted online. So therefore you can remain anonymous. So if you're telling me that Mrs. Smith is the best teacher ever, that's great, but Mrs. Smith is not going to get that information, through this survey because their name is redacted in any comments that are shared out. Likewise, if you say, Johnny is really struggling right now and I need someone to contact us about the fact that he's struggling, that information is not going to be relayed back to the school corporation because, again, we keep that information anonymous. So if you are having individual concerns and you want to make sure those are addressed, you need to contact the school through another means besides the survey because we don't have personal identifying information being released at any time from this survey. Let's take a look. So when you go online to take the survey, because it's offered in 3 languages, this blurb at the top tells you again that the survey is confidential and that it's anonymous and that no individual information is disclosed. That you don't need to answer every question, but the more questions you answer, the better that we are able to see overall how engaged and involved you are in the process. And then the same information is available in Spanish and then in Burmese. We ask you to select your language. That's so that the survey is in the language that you prefer. But then later on, we ask that home language as well, because while you might be taking the survey in Spanish, your home language might be something other than Spanish. But out of the 3 language choices, Spanish was the best for you. So we ask school corporation, school, grade, race, ethnicity, primary disability, home language. If your home language is not English, Spanish, or Burmese, then we ask that you put that in here. And then we ask 19 questions. All of them are multiple choice and either have a strongly disagree, disagree, agree, strongly agree, or not applicable option. We also have some supplemental questions this year, which are only available if your child is preschool aged, in which case we are asking about iSprout, or that transition from preschool to kindergarten, or we also have some supplemental questions if your child is in high school. And the supplemental questions we're asking there are about pre-employment transition services, um, their transition to life after high school, whether or not they're learning about community services, such as resource information, such as independent living centers, vocational rehabilitation. They're hearing about InSource and their involvement in that transition to life after high school or other community services in your area, and whether or not you're talking about supported decision making versus guardianship, and what that could look like for your individual student. Going to go back to the presentation and show you a snapshot of what LEAs receive. So when they get on a monthly basis this snapshot, they are told how many responses they've received, all 19 questions, not the supplemental questions, but all the main 19 questions are included, and then it tells them the number of responses that fall in each of the categories. We used to require that there be a minimum of 10 responses received. We just recently were told that we do not have to have that minimum. So LEAs are now able to receive the data beyond a minimum of 10 responses, which is awesome because that means that if it's less than 10, they can get notified that they're less than 10 and hopefully can take steps to get more parents access to the survey so that more parents are able to respond. So now I'd like to take some time to get your thoughts on the design of the survey, information to share with LEAs. How would you like to see these survey results? So currently we are working on some reports that are going to get posted to our website, showing the data from last 3 school years. How would you like to see those reports in the future? Um, or how would you like to see the reports before they are finalized? And then would you like to be involved in designing this parent survey or developing strategies to improve the response rate on the parent survey? If you are, please take a moment and email the special education at doe.in.gov email address and say parent survey focus group. We are currently taking steps to put together a focus group that is going to be responsible for looking at the design of the survey, looking at how many responses we received this past school year, which was that 10,000 number that I shared with you earlier, and then talking about future targets as far as response rate, about how positive or negative the survey responses are overall, and steps to take to improve parents' engagement and involvement in the IEP process and beyond so that the responses are trending positively across the state. How can we get a response rate that is representative of the demographics of our state? So that way we can know that for sure that people's voices are being heard. So if you're interested in that, um, please take a moment to send an email to that special education at doe.in.gov website. But also, we're going to take some time now to answer any questions that you might have um, and or any suggestions you have. I'm going to put this up for a few minutes, and then um, once we kind of get a little less questions asked, then I'll put up that link that we shared at the beginning of our session time today, so that way you can ensure that you're able to give us feedback on the sessions today and get your certificate for participating. So yeah, Lisa or Jill, is anyone with us live that has a question or ideas about the survey?
Michelle, we haven't had any questions or comments posted on our Facebook Live yet, and nor have we had anything on our Zoom platform. And I would really just like to point out for those that are on either platform, please, if you have questions or you would like to make a comment, please feel free to do that right now. We have Michelle here today, and this would be the best opportunity to get those questions and comments addressed at this time. So please feel free to drop them in either of the chat boxes, Zoom or on our Facebook Live.
I
Lisa,
will
have you seen
say
anything?
for those people who might not be watching this live, because I know that we're recording and we'll be posting it later, that special education at doe.in.gov website is a great way to provide um, feedback on the session today as well. So if you notice something in the survey and you're not watching live and you'd like to share that information with us, or you don't feel comfortable sharing live right now on Zoom or Facebook, feel free to send an email. Instead of saying parent survey focus group, if you could say parent survey webinar, that would be great.
So Michelle, I know that you addressed this, but would you mind going back over what happens or how should a parent request this survey if they are not offered it?
Yeah. So if you are in a case conference at any time during the school year, and at the end of the survey, you're not at the end of the survey, at the end of the conference, you're not offered a survey, um, just simply say, hey, um, I heard that the Department of Education is doing a survey. Can I have a copy? And they should either provide you a link to the survey or they should provide you a paper copy of it. Um, if they don't, for whatever reason, it is available on our website, both the paper copy that you could print off or the online version of the survey. If you need help taking the survey, if you um, like let's say you don't feel comfortable taking it online, you don't have access to a printer, you can use this special education website, email rather, and we will set up a time to take it over the phone. I will happily sit on a phone call with you and get your feedback on the survey. It is something that we offer um, to folks that need to. Um, so
We
that
do
would be
have a, I'm so sorry.
no, it's okay.
We do have a question that's been posted. It says, how does the DOE currently use the data to help LEAs improve practices?
Yeah. So right now, what we are doing is we are looking at the data over the course of 3 years. So this past school year, and then it's the 23-24 school year, and then 2 years prior to that. And what we've done is we've determined LEAs who have had um, fewer than 10 responses over the course of those 3 years and or less than 80% of the surveys that we've received from them show positive involvement and engagement. And so what's going to be happening is we're going to be reaching out to those LEAs and providing some technical assistance around family engagement but also on administering the survey because we want to make sure that um, if it's the lack of just completing the survey versus actually having families engaged. And so some of the technical assistance will be talking about the benefit of offering a CPAC, how to get that set up, how to ensure that families are receiving information about special education services and related services throughout the school year beyond just progress monitoring. That should be happening at least every time a report card goes out, if not more frequently. Uh, Report cards typically go out around 4 times a year. Progress monitoring sometimes needs to go out a little bit more frequently than that, but that's individually set up in each an individual's IEP. Um, there's a section in the IEP to address that. Um, and then uh, on top of that, how to ensure that inclusion is happening. Inclusion is not just something that happens in that day-to-day classroom, but also in the community that's formed in the school as well. And so, is the student be able to participate in extracurriculars and other activities that are happening beyond the classroom, field trips, um, just a variety of stuff.
Just a couple things, if you wouldn't mind, Michelle. Um, we've used a couple acronyms that I just want to make sure that our listeners are understanding what they are. Would you
Yeah.
would you please say what the acronym for LEA is?
Yeah, so that and I hope that I said it out loud at least once, but I will say it multiple times because it's not a familiar term. Local education agency is what LEA stands for. And what I mean by a local education agency is your school corporation. So for example, I live within the boundaries of Carmel Clay Schools, so my child's local education agency is Carmel Clay Schools.
Okay, thank you so much. And the other acronym was CPAC.
Yeah, and CPAC is also a new term. So CPAC is Special Education Parent Advisory Council. And so those are local councils. And by local, I mean they're school corporation, that LEA focused group, and they're looking at systemic issues that are happening. So not just one individual student is having this issue, but multiple students are having the issue in across the school system. So not just your kindergartners, not just your 10th graders, but a bunch of people are. Or it could just be at the elementary level or just the middle school level, but it's not happening depending on what the situation might be. And so the idea is it's parent driven, parent run, but it's in partnership with the administration. So your superintendent, your local special education director, your principals, other admin that might be in existence depending on the structure and size of your school corporation um, or local education agency. Because when I talk about local education agencies, when I talk about LEAs, I'm also talking about charter schools. Um, and I'm not gonna put any of them on blast today because I don't want them to think that I'm inadvertently calling them out in any negative light. All of our charter schools are awesome, just like all of our other traditional public schools in the state. And so you're able to form these parent-driven groups, these CPACs, these special education parent advisory councils, so that you can proactively address issues um, as they come up, so that in turn, instead of needing to utilize the dispute resolution options that are available to you, hopefully we're proactive and we don't get to a point where we need to involve the folks at the state level um, in doing dispute resolution. We're here for you. We want you to get students' needs met and have students have positive outcomes. Um, and so being proactive in that is always better than being reactive. Um, we're available to be reactive, but we are hoping to have people be more proactive. And so um, talking about special education parent advisory councils, which are CPACs, and how you can get involved with that. And I'd be happy to put up, if anyone wants to see that slide again, that interest form QR code. Um, so that we can have people get involved. There's a collaborative of CPACs in the state that meet. In fact, they're meeting next Tuesday. Um, and they meet throughout the year. And the purpose of that is so that the folks up in the north and the folks down in the southern part of our state, they can talk to each other and they can say, hey, this is what's going on in our area. Is that happening in your area? How are you, let's brainstorm together because there are things that are happening across the state. Everybody got impacted by this little thing called COVID, and while it's been 5 years, it's still it's still impacting education in a variety of ways. And then there's some other things that are happening across the state right now that's a state need. And you know having parents provide input as to how to address those needs is just as important as anybody else who comes to the table. And so CPACs are a great way to get you as parents to the table beyond just for a case conference, because the table needs to be available beyond case conference committee meetings.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much for explaining that. And
Yeah,
I do want to, shameless plug, we do have a webinar that has been recorded on our YouTube channel about CPACs, and our very own Lisa Paddock done a marvelous job on presenting that for us last year. It is on the rotation for being done again this year, but it's not in the next couple months. So it's one of those things that please be on the lookout. Ask your administrators, ask your special education director if any of that's been started in your area, so that you can definitely join if it already has. We have a couple more things. It says, can the survey be completed more than one time per year? Sometimes case conference committees convene more often than just the ACR.
it can. Yeah. So literally every single time that your case conference committee meets, you should take a survey. You don't have to, but that you have the opportunity to. So maybe one time you convene, the meeting doesn't finish, and you have some thoughts that you want to make sure that the state has captured as part of our collection for the year. Fill out a survey. Um, if you convene again and the experience is different, then fill out a survey. It does not just need to be for the ACR. We encourage local education agencies, those LEAs, to have you fill it out at least at the ACR, but that's the minimum requirement. That's not the only time that you can fill out a survey.
Okay. And I believe you already addressed this, but I think that it's well worth asking again. Is there a link available to the survey on your website, or what is the best way to locate it outside of school?
Yeah, so it is on our website, and that would be the best way to locate it outside of school, is through the website. Or if you're not able to locate it on the website, utilizing this email address that's on the screen right now, that's specialeducation@doe.in.gov. That email address is how parents are able to contact the State Department of Education's Office of Special Education directly. There are multiple people who monitor that inbox throughout the day and the week. And some of them are real good about making sure that they get back to you within a couple hours of that email, depending on what time of day you're emailing us. If you're emailing us at 10 o'clock at night, I apologize. We're all asleep. We're all, we all, we all value sleep down here in Indianapolis. And so, we make sure that we're in bed by 10. But if you're emailing us at like 8 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then typically you're going to get a response the same day. If not within 48 hours, unless it's a Friday afternoon or it's the day before um, some kind of state or federal holiday. So yeah, we try to be really uh, quick in responding, and and we like to get sure we get um, answers for you.
Well, thank you very much. Lisa, did you have any questions or did you see anything that I missed?
No, I did not. You got them all, Jill. And Michelle, thank you. We have really been talking to families about the parent survey, about CPAC, and about family engagement here at InSource as the PTI and working with the Department of Education, sharing this information and letting families know there are CPACs across the state and that our voices do count, and that the schools want to know about parent input. So thank you so much for coming today, and talking about family engagement in these variety of different ways. And we do hope that everyone will fill out the QR code and will visit our website at insource.org and know that we are here to assist in any way that we can. We work together collaboratively with families and schools and community stakeholders. And we hope that anyone who's taking part in this webinar, whether it's later or right now, will also talk about it and share it and go to our YouTube channel and watch some of our other presentations and utilize the Indiana Department of Education for all the resources they have. So that is all.
And I just want to point out too, sometimes we have, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when we have some of those that are bad or ugly, we can do those things very diplomatically, but even those things need to be addressed. And sometimes, if you're doing a survey and somebody doesn't know what that is, they can't make a change. And so it's be honest, and be truthful when you do fill out those surveys, because that information is very valuable as well. So please make sure that you are jumping on and doing that survey, whether it be at the school whenever you're there, or whether you come home and jump on the DOE's website and do it there. I don't see any more comments. Michelle, I cannot thank you enough for being here today and for presenting this for us. I greatly appreciate it. As you see on the screen, you will see the QR code that's been put up again, and that is the QR code that is for us at InSource, and that is please fill in this training sign-in, that training survey, and you can also print off a copy of certificate for you being here today. It's really important that we do have those QR codes and those surveys done, because again, InSource is a non-profit organization, and we have things that we have to make sure that are done, and part of our responsibility to our grantors are having that sign in and those surveys taken. So I don't see any other comments. And so again, Michelle, thank you so, so much for being here today. We do appreciate that. Lisa, did you have any other last comments?
I did not. Just thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Jill.
Okay, I just want to point out real quick that we do have a holiday that's coming up on Monday, so all in-source offices will be closed on Monday. And so that means that Monday minutes will, excuse me, will not be on Monday. And so that will be on the following Monday. And so with that, I want to thank again Michelle for being here today. Thank my co-host Lisa Paddock for being here. Please stay tuned. Lisa and I have other webinars that will be coming up in the next couple weeks. And so we do have some very timely information that will be coming with that. So with that, everyone, please have a wonderful day and enjoy the long weekend holiday. And we'll see you back here in just a couple weeks.